Hello, everyone. Welcome to another fantastic live episode of Dream Business Radio. I am your host, of course, Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach, coming to you today from Central Pennsylvania in our motorhome. This is episode 606. My special guest this week is one of the most talented sales experts, trainers, coaches I have ever met. His name is Paul Ross. He's my special guest today, Mr. Paul Ross. How you doing today?
Well, breakneck action, high adventure, round after round of financial wizardry, scientific breakthrough. It's the same old stuff, Jim. Boring, boring, batshit boring.
Making things happen on a big level. Hey, so folks, we're going to be talking about something that's near and dear to my heart. Now, I'm a marketer, I'm a brander, I'm a coach, but I'm a sales guy at heart. I'm nowhere near Paul's level, but believe me, I've sold a lot of coaching. I've sold a lot of products, books. I sold so many things, and I
uh,
really love and understand the psychology of sales. And I thought I knew it pretty well, but I think when I met Paul and started working with him, I'm just scratching the surface on what we're going to be able to help you with today. And by the way, I'm not talking about, we're up 3% today. That, right? We're not going to be talking about 3%. Some of the stuff that Paul can help you with, which is like, to me, it's like mind blowing. You want to go for 10, 20, 30, 50% sales increases. It is possible. It's not hocus pocus. We're going to dive right in. I'm going to read the very short version of his bio so we can get in here. Paul Ross is a highly paid coach and consultant. His latest book is called The Subconscious Sales Advantage: How to Increase Your Sales 30% or More in 90 Days. In full disclosure, as I said, not only is a friend of mine, he's a member of my Dream Business Mastermind, but I'm so excited to have him here. Now, Paul, as I said, I've always fancied myself a pretty good salesman, but when I learned about your talent and what you do on the, I almost said manipulative, like it's a bad word, but the persuasive side, using language, embedding commands, all that stuff, I was like, I was really thrilled. So tell me briefly. I basically want to dive into the book because I think the way this book is, it's a short book, folks. I think it's like less than 50 pages. So we're going to talk about that from a marketing perspective. Tell me about the subconscious sales advantage, Paul. Why'd you write the book?
before I do, and I wanted, we'll definitely dive into that. A lot of people come to me and they think, how in the world is it possible that you get 30, 40, 50? I have a client, Caleb Jones, and I increased his closings by 640% in just around 90 days. Now, I
Hmm.
can't claim I can do that for everyone. There's a quote that really inspired me to come up with this. And the quote is from a famous science fiction author named Arthur C. Clarke. He wrote a book called 2001: A Space Odyssey. You may have heard of
Mm-hmm.
it. And
Sure.
Arthur C. Clarke said, any sufficiently developed technology is indistinguishable from magic. This looks like magic, but when I teach my VIP clients and they come to me, a lot of them come skeptically. They think this is too much like magic. How can it be true? And I said, it's not magic. It's a technology. Once you break it down and you understand it and you have some coaching with me, you can apply it to get these huge leaps. And I just want to say, Jim, before I don't want to disrupt your questioning. If you are the kind of person who doesn't want to take on something that's outside the box, colors outside the lines, disconnects the dots, if you're stuck in your conventional way of thinking, and you're happy with 5, 10% incremental stuff, with all due respect, I'm not for you. I'm just not. Go take something off the shelf. And so I wrote the book with the intention of communicating as much of that magic as I can in something that can be consumed in one sitting, because nowadays people just don't have the focus they used to have. So the fundamental ideas behind the book is you can use your language to create states of consciousness, states of focus, states of suggestibility, states of convincing themselves for their own reasons that they want to buy, so that they feel good about it and they trust their own ability to make that decision. So these are concepts that are contrarian and you cannot find in any conventional sales. And I just want to say one more thing, because I am
Mm-hmm.
arrogant, but I'm not so arrogant that I can't acknowledge there are plenty of good sales stuff out there. The problem is your prospect has seen it before. and your competition is all doing it. So it becomes a foot race to get to the most skeptical, burnt out, and unfocused person, which is not the way you can get exponential results. You have to do something like what I'm doing, and there's no one who's doing what I'm doing.
And the interesting thing about that, I've studied success and successful people, Paul, like you have, and they have the top 1%, top 5%, top 10%. And it's such a small group of people because they are willing to do things differently. And what you said, some people might even be watching or listening to this later on, go, wow, what an arrogant SOB. Well, that's okay. But the thing is, if you have to be honest, not everybody wants to grow a business or increase their sales at lightning speed, because in order to do so, mentor of mine, Dan Kenny, said, success leaves a messy kitchen. You have to be willing to stir things up and do things differently. So I appreciate your honesty there. The title makes me think some people would look at it and go, oh, wait, I'm going to buy this Ginsu knife and cut down a 200-year-old tree. That's not possible. But you have filled the book, not only with examples of how you do it. There's two great testimonials. You mentioned one of them, Caleb, and we'll get there in a little while. But so before I dive into the book, since you broached the subject and you asked already my probably my fifth question. It's a short book that you can consume in one sitting, which I love. I'm a fan of that. Number one, Stephanie says I have the patience of a gnat, so I can't read a book over a week. I can't read it over a month, several days, because I'll be interrupted. So you've given somebody who reads your book a taste of how it's done, and if it resonates with them, maybe they'll reach out. So is that working for you? When did the book come out?
Yeah, it came out about 2 months ago, but there's something else. There's something else in there. Yes, I created to be consumed in one sitting and pack as much value in as I can, because people can't focus the way they used to focus. And there's the biggest enemy of your sales nowadays, not your competition. It's this thing, because people are so distracted, they just cannot pay attention. But more importantly, I make it so available. It's such a low, it's like $7, or you can download it for free in a certain way. I'm so focused on the passion for this message. We'll get there. But the other reason I virtually give it away is it's so contrary to what people think. If I don't give those examples where they can go out, and there's specific language in the book where they can go out and try it for themselves. It's so out there, Jim. I don't expect for people to find yourself wanting to be one of those very handful of few VIPs I work with. Right prior to seeing for yourself that this stuff works, I have to virtually give it away, or no one would in their right mind believe it. Even with the fantastic testimonials, I have to virtually give it away, because it's so out there. People say, what's the best testimonial? I say the best testimonial is your own success, because you can't question it. That's the beauty of the book, is there's consumable stuff you can go out and try right away. You don't have to believe me or find your own reasons to believe me. Just go try this stuff out.
So that's a great answer, and I would expect that from a professional like you. You and I are the same age, Paul, but there's something else I know to be at play here, and I don't want to embarrass you here as my guest. But
That's
you and I we've had conversations about legacy. We both had very long careers, and I know we're getting to the point where we might be stepping onto the beach a lot more often than we used to, and you have helped a lot. I mean, hundreds of people. And yet you feel like the job is undone until you help everybody. That's what I like about you. You got a big heart. But the other thing I want to share with you, just take the compliment. Don't rebuff me. And the thing I want to share with you, also what you just said on that answer, it's really about knowing who your audience is. If you think your audience, aka prospective clients, customers, whatever, is everybody, you're just attracting mush. It's just nothing. You know who your target, for people that want to work with you at your VIP level, it's not, you don't need to sell thousands and thousands and thousands of books. If you sold, honestly, and I'm not giving away any secrets here, but if you sold 200 books or gave them away and 10 people came to the VIP level, you've got a very successful program with the book.
Yeah, totally true. Totally true. And once again, I'll reiterate this point. There's no reason to find your own reasons to believe that this is something you want to explore further any faster than you buy or download the book and go, can I just say the S word on your show?
Sure. Go
Holy
for it.
shit.
Yep.
Holy shit. I went out, I tried it. And there's also a danger in the book. I want to see there's a danger in becoming really, really going super past anything you thought you could ever achieve, which is you may freak out. I've had clients come to me and freak out and go, all right, what else in my life did I think I couldn't do? And now I can do it. Oh my God, why didn't I think that I could do it before? And so one of the things I do as part of working with me as a VIP, I need to prepare people for the success they're going to have in a very short period of
Mm-hmm.
time. And I'm not joking about this, Jim. We've never discussed this. We're friends and talk a lot. There is a big mind F that comes along with getting this degree of success in 3, 4, 5 months, because people would stop and think, wait, why didn't I do that sooner? And so I have to coach my VIP clients at the very end of working with me. I have to coach them. I'm not making this, this is for real. I've learned this recently. I have to take great pains to create a mindset that once they're massively successful, they don't go back and beat themselves up for not having done it sooner.
And the other thing is, if let's say they've been on the train called average, so the average train's getting maybe 5%, maybe they're lucky and get 10% when they think, oh, I'm doing great, competition's at 4 or 5%, I'm getting 10. If you take them up to 30, 40, 50%, something in that range, their whole business changes, right? I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. And
with
half of
that
them
much
freak out.
increase, you have to have infrastructure too,
Eh,
right?
Correct. Success breeds growth breeds confusion and
Yep.
chaos. It's just true. No one else will say it. So I often say to I have a wait list to apply to work with me, but I often say to people, what is this going to mean to you when you're doing this level? Are you going to grow your team? How are you going to do that? What is going to once you get the success, what are you going to have to change? And can you handle it? And so I'm not good at teaching hiring teams. That's up for you to do, but to help people to handle not this mindset to get to success, which I do, but the mindset to handle the success once they get there is something that makes me unique because I don't think anyone else is offering that.
So I want to dive into, I love this conversation. I love the philosophical and all that, but let's dive into the book a little bit. You talk a great deal about languaging and
Yeah.
persuasion.
Yes.
And I'm not talking languaging about trial close, none of that
No.
crap.
No.
So, pattern interrupt and all this really high level stuff.
Let's get
But
into it.
Paul, but man, chapter 1, I'm turning a few pages. I always prepare for interviews, believe it or not. And I'm turning, and it's not about selling. It's not about selling your programs or your courses or your
No.
whatever. So you say it's not about selling. I thought that's
No.
funny. I thought I was reading a book about sales.
No.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So one of my deep insights is you're never selling your product or service. And if you think you are, and if you think you have to get better at selling your product and service, you're following conventional wisdom. What you're really always selling is decisions and good feelings about decisions. So
Mm,
where does language come into that? Well, words are powerful. You're a man of faith. I'm not particularly, but what is one of the first things in the New Testament? In the beginning was the Word, right?
yes.
And the Word was with God, and the Word was God. Now, I don't particularly want to get into faith, and I respect everyone's faith, but even there, they're acknowledging the power of words. It's really
Hmm.
super powerful. So, language structures consciousness, shapes decisions, and drives behavior. And big part of decision making is emotion. Can you learn, and I'm claiming you can learn within the first few minutes to structure that client's consciousness so they see you through the following lenses? Let me put it to you this way. Supposing, Jim, I have a sheet of gold foil and I have a sheet of cardboard, and I want to conduct a current of electricity. This is not a trick question. Which
Okay.
one is going to conduct that electricity? The
The
gold
gold
foil or the
foil.
cardboard? Exactly. So consider your prospect's emotional state of mind to be like that conductive medium. Do you want them in the cardboard states of being distracted, of not believing they deserve success, of not trusting you, of not trusting themselves, of not being excited? Or do you want them in those conductive states of being focused on you, believing in you, following you as if they thought you were their leader, not just someone who they're learning from? And my claim is in the first nine, this is an outrageous claim. Within the first 90 seconds, you can use language to create those states. So everything you say after that is received through those childlike states of wanting to believe you, of being deeply suggestible. And some people will say, Jim, that's manipulation. I say, thank you very much. But you know what? A therapist manipulates their client to think things differently and to expand their range of beliefs. The surgeon, if you go to a surgeon, I hope they're skilled at manipulating that knife. So you can, if you think of manipulation as moving people with deliberateness, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I don't believe manipulation is bad if ultimately what you're selling is good, it's going to make their life better. I've always believed much more simplistic language than you would use, but you can walk people up to the edge, but you sometimes need to give them a push because
Yes.
there's a fear factor, like, well, what if it goes bad? Or, buyer's remorse kicks in and before you even sign or hand over your credit card. And if you can help people get to that emotional state, and believe me, I understand buying with emotion. A couple of the biggest purchases I've ever made, my boat, a 50-foot boat, this motorhome, those happened pretty quickly because I was so emotionally in love with the lifestyle. It wasn't about, oh, is this a good investment? I became emotionally involved. And I
Correct.
think that's a lot about what you're saying, Paul.
Correct. Now, there's nothing new in teaching that emotion is the basis of our decisions. What's new and what I'm teaching is how to use your language with deliberateness, skill, and speed to create those emotions on the unconscious level so they're not questioned, so they appear to arise from the prospect's own reasons, not for reasons you give them, and therefore there's no resistance. And not only is there no resistance, there's enthusiasm, and they give you repeat business and they give you referrals without even having to ask for them. What would it mean,
Wow.
ladies and gentlemen, what would it mean for your business if you get referrals without even having to ask for them on a consistent basis?
I dare say they're driving off the road or applauding. I mean, everybody wants to learn the secret to getting more referrals.
Yeah, I hope that's responsive to your question. I'm kind of wandering off out of my own passion
No, it's
for the
good. I like
subject.
the wandering. I always prepare 5 times more questions than I need because I love good conversation. Now, Paul, it's just sort of the same thing, languaging, but and persuasion, right? Um, are those kind of the same thing? Because I also want to ask about implanting suggestions and things like that.
Languaging is the methodology that any
Okay.
good persuasion uses. Look, sales, uh, whether you're doing sales or whether you're doing seduction, and I'll just say I started out as the king of seduction coaching. That's how I started my career. That's how I
Hmm.
gained these insights. Whether you're doing sales or seduction or whatever it is, they're all subsets of influence and persuasion. And the currency of influence and persuasion of any kind is suggestibility, suggestibility, and stoking emotion.
Mm.
But if you can't get that focus, Jim, then you're going nowhere. And one of the beautiful things about what I teach is how to create that instantaneous focus on you in a way where they view you not just as someone who's educating them, but unconsciously view you as their leader who they want to. I'm just going to say the word comply. You're not creating rapport, you're creating compliance. Now, this is going to blow people's minds to say that rapport is overrated, that rapport
Hmm.
may even be unnecessary. I'm going for compliance. Rapport is only useful if it can lead to getting compliance.
And when you say compliance, you're talking about getting them to comply and move forward, make the sale if it's
Yes,
right, right? I mean, all of this high level stuff, and I've studied NLP. You're a master at that. I've studied a lot of different things, and sometimes the instructor always goes, "Now this could be used for good or bad. We want it to be used for good, right?" So if somebody hears the word comply, they might, oh, ooh, that seems weird, right? This Me Too society type thing. But
we
we're
comply all
talking
the
about,
time.
yeah, we're
Uh,
helping people make good decisions that are ultimately going to help them.
We comply all the time. If you didn't automatically comply with those traffic lights, there would be accidents left and right. We comply with social norms. So we don't go up to people and tell them, hey, I think you're ugly, or hey, I think you've got a great butt. We
Hmm.
comply all the time. So I'm just taking a mechanism that's already there and saying, how can we evoke it very quickly in a way that serves the client's own best interest, but also takes away so much of the friction and the hard work of selling. If when you do selling this way, selling becomes fun and it becomes much easier and it becomes far more lucrative. Who doesn't want those outcomes?
You know what else? I've always believed, and the way my career has been, especially in the last say 20 years, working with people at a higher level is so much more rewarding.
Yes.
You know what I mean? The people and Gary Halbert used to talk about this all the
I
time.
love
When you
Gary.
work with people at this level, like up here, if you're just listening on audio, my hands over my head, and it's like those people are outcome based. People that might I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody buys something for say $47. It's a whole bunch of digital download stuff. They want to make sure they get, oh, wait a minute, I didn't get the third bullet on your list. You give them hundreds of dollars for this. Somebody who invests $25,000, 50 grand to work with, a person at Paul or my level, something like that. And you literally change their world, change their life with the outcome. That ROI is nothing, but that's the difference. Again, when I started talking with you, Paul, I said there's the 1%. Those people at the top, they think differently, they make different decisions. And that
Correct.
can be learned. That behavior, I believe, can be learned.
Yes. Yes. And this is one of the core beautiful things. I don't want to get side road into NLP, but the ability to model successful people and then to transfer that talent that they have, their ways of thinking, into someone who hasn't quite mastered it is a very unique skill set. And I dare say very few people in the world can do it. There's hundreds of thousands of NLP trainers, but they don't know that core skill. This is something
Yes,
that makes me unique. I'm going to brag a little bit. If you can do what you say you can do, you can brag.
that's
So
right.
not only do I have this unique way of selling, but one of the things I can do is I can go into someone who's got a great sales team, who's already doing well. And Jim, let's talk honestly between you and me
Okay.
and anyone out there who understands sales. If you have a team of 10 people who are doing sales, 3 of them are going to be bringing in 75% of your revenue. The other
True.
3 are going to be doing 20%, and the bottom 3 or 4 would do 5%. They're dead weight. And I
Yep.
don't talk about this in the book, but one of my skill sets is to model the talent of those top 3 and transfer that into the other 3. So what does it mean for your business if you could take the top 3 people and make the next 3 just as good? That's a return on investment that's insane. Absolutely
That's
insane.
interesting. I mean, Paul, you always hear different schools of thought. Focus on your strengths, not your weakness. Now, that's personally speaking. But when you got high performers, you're saying you can transfer some of what the genius that they
Yep.
have
Yep.
into the maybe not the people at the bottom. I don't know. Correct me, but
No,
certainly the
no, they're
people that are in the
worthless.
middle. Okay.
No,
Okay.
no, no human being is worthless. We're all
Yeah.
have inherent value. But as far as business, you are. This is one of the reasons why I've raised my rates and why the list to wait from you actually have to apply to work with me. You cannot get on the phone with me or the Zoom with me unless you apply. And if I don't like what's on the application, I'm sorry. I don't mean I'm maybe being a little arrogant. I don't want to waste my time. I don't want to waste their time. If they can't
Right.
open that checkbook to the point where it stings a little bit, oh well.
Well, that's understanding the ROI. Yeah, we're down to about 7 or 8 minutes.
I'm
I've barely
sorry,
scratched
Jim.
the surface. No, no, no. This is good stuff. Believe me, it's a great conversation. I want to ask you, one of my favorite things I learned years ago is called the pattern interrupt.
Yep.
When I started speaking, I started using the pattern. So when I'd get introduced and I'd hit the stage, they'd expect me to say thanks for coming, and I'd like launch into some crazy thing, right? Whether it's a question or a statement, and it like completely shocks the audience. You explain what a pattern interrupt
Yeah.
is.
So I'm a classical hypnotist. I've studied hypnosis. There's an idea in hypnosis that people think, feel, respond, act in fixed patterns. When you interrupt that pattern, they become very suggestible. And once you get them suggestible, you can lead them. So I'll give you an example. This is great for crushing objections. If someone says, I need more time to think it over, which is what we hear all the time.
Mm-hmm.
My answer is not, well, what do you need to think about? Or let's explore what we need to think about together. I'll say, really, can I ask a question? Have you ever had the experience of you take a long time to think something over and it still turns out to be a disastrous decision? Now that interrupts their whole way of thinking. It gives them objection amnesia. And then I say, maybe it's not about time, but about the clarity you need to recognize a great decision's being made. So I
Mm.
totally interrupt the pattern of what they're expecting, and they can no longer even look back at what the objection was, and I can get the real discussion going about what's really standing in the way. Another one would be, I need to talk to my spouse. They're expecting me. What are they expecting me to do? Well, you don't need to, or let's get her on the phone. I'll say, I agree. It's important. She also get on board with us so she too can see what a great decision this is. So thinking about like that, what's the best, easiest way to bring her into this discussion right now?
Mm.
So this is completely interrupting their expected pattern of response. They become very suggestible and they buy into the suggestion that it's already a great decision.
That's awesome. Hey, I'm going to ask you, and please say no to this, but you brought in, you mentioned Caleb Jones earlier in the
Yep.
conversation.
Yep.
And one of the things I like about your book, Paul, is you had a couple testimonials, I think more
Yep.
than two, but you had at least two testimonials. And they were actually, I looked, they were transcripts of stuff that's on your website. So these are people that went on camera and said this. So it's not like, it's not some phony baloney,
No, no,
rock and roll guy from, East Jabip that writes this. Would
no.
you object if I read Caleb's testimonial? I'd love to ask a question
No,
following it.
no, and even better, people can watch it for themselves. But yeah, go ahead, read it,
Okay,
read it,
so this
read it.
this is a transcript from the video, and I saw it. So it goes, "Hey, I'm Caleb Jones. I own several companies, including two online brands, Alpha Male 2.0 and Sovereign CEO, and we sell coaching programs, among other things. And we use telephone sales to close those sales. Back in May, I think this is probably last year, we worked."
Last year,
Before we worked with Paul, our close rate for salespeople on the phone for these programs was 13%. Not that great. We brought in Paul. He worked with our sales team, and within 2 months, our close rate went from 13%. I said, "This is a typo," to 84%. So it's a multiple of better, 10 or 20%
yeah,
improvement, but many times, many multiples of that. And then he says, on top of that, we have another team who does email sales, cold email outreach, which is one of the lowest things you can do, but it does
lowest.
produce some results. And he goes, "I don't remember the exact number, but Paul worked with our email team. He personally rewrote the emails, rewrote some of the titles and subject lines. And I
Mhm.
believe in just a few weeks, maybe less, our open rates were over 300% up." Oh
Yes,
my gosh. And
and
he
the
goes on to
click-through
say how
rates,
great you
and
are.
the
So,
click-through rates on the offer doubled. And so here's the cool thing: this subconscious languaging can be used on any platform, not just on live calls, but it can also be done in emails. And one of the services I offer for the super VIPs who really want to open the big checkbook is I'll
uh-huh.
use these skills and my skills as a copywriter to put hypnotic language into their already existing and high performing copy and emails. So no one else offers that, but
Would
that's a
it be
huge
asking too
paycheck.
much in a couple of minutes, Paul? Like, give an idea, like, because he said you started turning things around. It wasn't like a 2-year engagement, like
No,
60,
no.
90 days. What were some of the things you did with the sales team, if you can
Sure,
give us a hint?
sure. Well, the first thing I did is I changed their beliefs about what it means to sell. I
Hmm.
changed their beliefs about what it means to sell. They were so focused on giving the facts. Here's what the program is. Here's what you get.
Feature
And
benefit, right?
yeah, the benefits. And I said, no, 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 no. Even though you give benefits, that's still not enough. You need to get them to believe in themselves. The number one thing that's the hardest, highest level concept for my VIP clients to grasp is the most important trust is not the trust they put in you. It's their ability to trust themselves that they're making a great decision. No one else teaches that. So I taught them something to say on those calls within the first 90 seconds to get that prospect to trust themselves. That was the lever. That was the big lever that began that increase in what they were doing. One more quick thing. I know I want to make this point.
No, I'm not going
There's
to cut you off, but hold the thought. Don't lose what you're going to say. I want people to understand, because I like listening to podcasts. Sometimes I'm like where I can't write stuff down. What Paul just said is a huge clue. Like a lot of people, I need to crush objections or try out. Paul says in the first 90 seconds of being on the phone, he switched up the languaging, right? And the persuasion and the words, and that got people more receptive to hearing the rest of the call. Did I oversimplify that?
because they trusted their own ability that they were going to make a good decision. You
Okay.
understand?
Yep.
You understand? Without them trusting themselves, them trusting you is I don't want to swear, is horse hockey.
Okay.
This whole thing, know, like, and trust. Yeah, but nowadays, if they don't trust themselves, that know, like, and trust is just a nice conceptual horse hockey. It's a lot of air. And so the number one thing I taught them to start getting leverage is within the first 90 seconds to use some specific hypnotic language to install in the person on the other side of that consult that they could trust themselves and that they were going to make a great decision. And here's a key principle. If you want to be super good at sales, there's a time to be specific and there's a time to be vague. And in the book, I talk about the ability to be artfully vague and even confusing. No one would dare to say, don't make the message clear. I say there's a time in the sale to not make the message clear and to even be confusing. That's one of the hardest concepts to grasp, but one of the most powerful in the book, The Subconscious Sales Advantage.
Paul, I mean, I could go for another hour, but I literally can't. But one of the things I always look for, what if I could only grab one thing out of this half an hour I've just spent with Paul and Jim, it'd be this. It's not know, like, and trust is important. It's talked about all the time, but getting them to know, like, and trust their own decision making.
Yep.
Because they're the one that will ultimately put, I don't care how good you are at all, whatever, but when they feel good about themselves, when they trust themselves, they're going to move forward. And it's not about the features and benefits and trial balloons and all this and that. It's about getting them to trust themselves. So, Paul, where can they get the book? I know there's some places you give it away for free, and then it's on Amazon, of course.
You can grab it on Amazon. There's two other things you can do. If you go to Subconscious Sales Advantage, not the Subconscious Sales Advantage, but Subconscious Sales Advantage, you can download it for free. There's no BS. It's everything that's in the paper version of the book. It's consumable. You can consume the damn thing unless you read, move your lips while you read. You can consume it in about 40 minutes. I designed it that way. And yeah, that's where they can get it. And just one more thing.
Yeah, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
One more thing. I know it's hard to believe that someone can get those kind of crazy results. If you go to paulrossresults.com, you can see Caleb's own actual testimonial to the point where you think, okay, and there's a little link there where you can click to apply to work with me. But I don't mean to be mean. Don't hold your breath that it's going to happen anytime soon, because I do have a wait list.
I appreciate that. Now, folks, there's a couple big important lessons here. Number one, he wrote the book, and I've seen this strategy for a while. I've even used it myself with some of my clients. If you can sit down and read a book in 40 minutes, it's going to, first of all, that's amazing, because nobody gets through regular books anymore, right? There's always interruptions. But if you can read the book in 40 minutes, in plain, simple language, you're not going to learn everything you need to learn to get huge increases in that. But what Paul has done is tantalize you. And as a marketer, I think it's brilliant. If I read that book in 40 minutes, which I did actually, because my lips don't move when I read, but if I read that book in 40 minutes,
that was rude of me.
I mean, believe me, I prepare for some interviews and I can't get through books, but I read yours in about 40 minutes. And I was like, I could think of the questions I wanted to ask you. I was mesmerized with some of the stuff you shared on this interview, Paul, and it made me want to get on like we're doing, and talk with you. Now, if I wasn't going to interview you, I would want to get on the phone and learn more. So I'm a marketer, right? So that's a brilliant marketing strategy in and of itself. But the big thing is you don't have to settle for average anymore. If you really want to achieve some substantial sales increases, Go to his website, put in an application. And by the way, I know this about Paul. If in his form where he's asking a few questions, don't put NA to be discussed.
I
You
won't.
better give some solid, concrete stuff to make him want to talk to you.
NA doesn't work. If you put in NA in there, I delete it.
Paul Ross, you're an amazing man. I know you sometimes come across brash. I know you got a big heart.
I am brash.
People know that. But I always say, when people say, Jim, you're very confident, meaning I talk about bragging. I said, it's not bragging if it's true. So we have that in common. Thank you so much for coming on my program, Paul. You've changed lives here today. I'm confident of that.
Thank you, Jim. Thank you for having me. And I just want to leave people with this idea. It's the very ways of thinking, feeling, acting, and moving through the world that are so different from what you're used to doing, that have the possibility of giving you results that are so far beyond what you even are used to imagining. So invest in yourself. Get a free download or pay $7 on Amazon and 40 minutes of your time. If you don't do that, I don't know what I can tell you.
There's no hope for you.
There's no hope.
All right, Paul, thank you so much. Hey, folks, thanks for joining us for this special now 36-minute interview, but I'm happy to do it when I've got somebody at Paul's caliber. He can change your life. So get the book. It's free. Pay $7, whatever you want to do. Get the book. Put aside 40 minutes. You don't have to watch some stupid TV show. And that's it. So this time next week, by the way, that will if you do those things, you're inching forward into that top 1%. I guarantee it. Hey, until this week, another fantastic interview. I'm Captain Jim Palmer, the Dream Business Coach. You take good care.
Bless your hearts. Bye.